Makoto Misumi, an average high school student, found his life taking a sudden turn for the worse. Unlike typical anime protagonists who might be whisked away to another world for fun, Makoto's story was different. He was described as the ugliest MC you'll ever see. One day, after returning home from school, he was unexpectedly summoned by Tsukuyomi, the moon god, whom Makoto recognized from old Japanese legends. Tsukuyomi explained to Makoto that he had to go to another world. Makoto then learned that his parents weren't originally from Earth. They had come from this other world to escape danger. To ensure their safety, they had made a deal with a goddess, promising to offer their most valuable possession in exchange for protection. This valuable thing turned out to be Makoto. Now, it was Makoto's turn to fulfill this promise, or the god would take one of his sisters instead. Realizing he had no choice, Makoto agreed to go. Before sending him off, Tsukuyomi granted Makoto an immense amount of power to help him survive in this new world, and even swore to clear Makoto's legendary plot history to make him feel better. However, Tsukuyomi warned him about the goddess he was supposed to meet, mentioning that she could be quite troublesome. When Makoto arrived in the new world, he met the goddess as expected, but instead of welcoming him like a hero, she immediately expressed disgust at his ugly face. She told him he was too ugly to be the hero of her world, and that she had already found someone else for that role. Rather than help him, she kicked him to the edge of the world where the lowest ranked creatures lived. The only ability she granted him was to understand every language except the human one, which proved not very useful. Makoto was then thrown into an abyss where he encountered Tsukuyomi again. This time, Tsukuyomi informed him that since the goddess didn't need him to be the hero, he was now free to live his life however he wished in this new world. Tsukuyomi also explained that because Makoto had endured a tough life on Earth, he would be much more powerful in this new world. After this, Tsukuyomi bid farewell, hoping they might meet again someday. Makoto fell from the sky and crashed into a barren wasteland, surrounded by desolation, and after walking for 3 days, he began to feel lonely and hopeless. Just when he thought he might never find anyone, he heard a distant voice calling for help. Rushing toward the sound, Makoto discovered a pig-faced girl being attacked by a two-headed monster. Without hesitation, Makoto stepped in and, using surprising strength, took down the monster with a single blow. He was shocked by his own power. The pig girl, who was described as having a massive plot, introduced herself as Emma. She was initially scared of Makoto due to his strength, but after he introduced himself, she calmed down. She was confused that a human could understand her language, and Makoto was equally confused that he could speak to a pig. Emma explained that she had been on her way to the Divine Mountain to sacrifice herself to a being called Shin. Her village had been suffering from a thick fog that ruined their crops, and each time someone was sacrificed, the fog disappeared. Before continuing her mission, Emma took Makoto back to her village as thanks for saving her. While there, Makoto realized that everyone in this world knew how to use magic. Emma offered to teach him some magic, starting with a fire spell. To everyone's surprise, Makoto mastered the spell immediately. They suspected he might be incredibly powerful, but when they checked his level, it turned out he was still only at level 1, which confused them. The next day, Makoto headed toward the mountain to try and stop Emma from sacrificing herself to Shin. Drawing on his archery skills from school, he created a magical bow and arrow and fired it at the mountain gate. His attack was so powerful that it destroyed the gate and injured several men who were pretending to be followers of Shin to control the people. However, Makoto's actions angered the real Shin, who suddenly appeared in the form of a massive dragon. Shin attacked Makoto, but even though the area was covered in thick mist, Makoto managed to dodge all her attacks. He used a new ability to sense Shin's location, even though he couldn't see her through the fog. Makoto fought back, surrounding the dragon with fireballs and hitting her hard enough to knock her down. But when Makoto let his guard down, Shin used her magical eyes to trap him in an illusion. In the illusion, Makoto found himself back at his high school where his crush, Nukumi, suddenly confessed her feelings for him. However, Makoto realized it was all fake, knowing that his ugly looks meant he can't even risk ugliest girl, so this situation couldn't be real. He broke free from the illusion by using his powers to dispel it. Once free, Makoto prepared to fight Shin again, but the dragon no longer wanted to battle. She was impressed by Makoto's strength and offered to make a contract with him to become his companion. After some hesitation, Makoto agreed, and during the ritual, his power was so overwhelming that Shin ended up becoming his slave instead. She even transformed into a human form with a huge plot as a result of the contract. After the contract was formed, Shin showed Makoto a hidden dimension she controlled called the demiplane. This space used to be dark and empty, but thanks to Makoto's power, it had now become a beautiful, fertile land with plants and fruits, some of which even reminded Makoto of those from Earth. Shin was amazed by the transformation, and Makoto realized that this demiplane could be the perfect place to live, where the goddess could not interfere with him. Makoto then remembered why he had come to the mountain in the first place, to stop the sacrifices. He found out that Shin wasn't responsible for the sacrifices at all. It was a misunderstanding caused by the worthless men pretending to be her followers. Makoto and Shin returned to the village, where Emma was shocked to see that the great dragon Shin had turned into a human girl and was now following Makoto. The village celebrated Makoto's victory and the end of the sacrifices. During the celebration, Shin suggested that the orcs from the village move into the demiplane since it was a safe and prosperous place to live. By the next day, the orcs were ready to move. Makoto felt unsure about moving so quickly, but the orcs were determined to repay him for saving them and swore their loyalty to him. While the orcs settled in, Makoto spent time practicing his magic, and Shin entertained herself by watching his memories. This began to annoy Makoto, so Shin promised to find a way to view his memories without disturbing him all the time. One day, as Makoto walked through the demiplane, he met some orcs who were trying to cut down a huge tree to build a house for him. The tree was too hard for them to cut, so Makoto used his powers to chop it down and easily lifted the tree. He also discovered that he could heal others without using any of his magical energy, although he could not heal his own wounds. Meanwhile, Shin returned to the demiplane with a dwarf named Baron, whom she had rescued from the forests. Baron had been chased by a giant spider monster. Unfortunately, the spider followed them into the demiplane and attacked. Shin decided to stay out of the fight, leaving Makoto to handle the spider. The spider was cursed with an unending hunger, which made it eat everything it could find. Makoto began the battle by using fire magic to cut off one of the spider's legs, but the creature regenerated quickly. No matter how much damage Makoto inflicted, the spider kept healing itself. During the fight, Makoto was stabbed through the gut by the spider's leg, which made him extremely angry. He unleashed his full power, launching a series of non-stop fire and water attacks. Eventually, Makoto passed out from exhaustion. When Makoto woke up, he was shocked to see that the spider hadn't killed him. Instead, the creature had taken a liking to him and formed a contract with him while he was unconscious. Now, the spider had transformed into a human form, just like Shin, also described with a massive plot. Makoto was surprised because he didn't know it was possible to form a contract without agreeing to it. Shin explained that it was better to form the contract than to have a giant spider following him everywhere. Baron, the dwarf, thanked Makoto for defeating the spider, which had been terrorizing his village for a long time. He asked if he and his people could move into the demiplane to live safely. Makoto agreed, and Shin added that the dwarves must help provide weapons and acknowledge Makoto as their leader. Baron accepted the conditions, and Shin gave him 2 dragon scales to help convince his people. The next day, Makoto was walking around the demiplane, trying to figure out more about his parents and looking for human settlements. Suddenly, Shin showed up and said there was something important that needed his attention. Makoto rushed back to the hut, thinking it was serious. But when he got there, Shin and the Spider Girl told him that they needed new names because no one in the demiplane knew what to call them. Makoto was pretty annoyed, as this seemed like a small issue, but Shin and the Spider Girl insisted it was important, so he finally agreed and gave Shin her new name, Tomo, after a strong female samurai. Mio was the name he gave the Spider Girl. The next day, there was a big gathering of all the demiplane citizens. Makoto was surprised by how many different types of creatures lived there now. During the meeting, Tomo and Mio introduced themselves with their new names. They also told everyone to call Makoto Master or Lord, which Makoto thought was silly. After some back and forth, he decided to let them call him Young Master. Baron, one of the dwarves, introduced Makoto to the village chief, Eld. Eld noticed that Makoto's ugly face didn't really look like a regular human and asked if he had been given some sort of mission by the goddess. Makoto got offended and said he would never take a mission from the goddess after she insulted him and threw him to the edge of the world. Eld was relieved because his people didn't agree with the goddess either. Tomo then showed off her followers, the lizardmen, a species that used air and water magic. Mio introduced her followers too. They were called the Arche, Ali, and their hunger had finally been satisfied since they received Makoto's blood and magic power. Makoto gave a quick speech to everyone, then left to search for a human village he had seen earlier. As he was walking toward it, he spotted a human girl, but she ran away the moment she saw him. Makoto kept going toward the village, but when he got there, the villagers pointed their weapons at him. They spoke in a language he couldn't understand, and they started attacking him. So Makoto had to leave. Back at the hut, Makoto was upset that he couldn't talk to the villagers. He started thinking that maybe they attacked him because he was ugly, but Tomo explained that the reason they were scared was because of how much mana he gave off. To them, it must have felt like a bunch of demon kings showing up at once. Emma suggested that Makoto should try to control his mana by imagining he was putting a lid on it. Makoto tried, but it only worked a little bit. Still, he was determined to learn the human language and figure out how to keep his mana in check. Later, a magic expert named Rugui gave Makoto a ring that should help him suppress his mana. But as soon as he put it on, the ring broke because of how much mana he had. Makoto also started learning the common speech with Mio, but he found it really hard. Then he realized that he could use his magic to write down whatever he was thinking, and it would automatically translate into the common language. Rugi came, back with a new ring, which worked this time, but she warned him that the ring would change from white to red when it was about to overload. Makoto decided to return to the human village. This time, he dressed up as a wealthy merchant's son and hid his face with a mask to avoid suspicion. As he entered the village, he noticed that everyone there was very good-looking, which made him feel bad because he still saw himself as the ugly one. When they arrived at the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist greeted them but found Makoto suspicious because of his mask. Mio and Tomo quickly made up a story, saying that Makoto had a curse that forced him to wear the mask and kept him from speaking. The receptionist then explained that new adventurers started at rank E and could go up by completing quests. She also gave Tomo and Mio measuring scrolls to check their power levels. Everyone was shocked to see that Tomo was at level 1320 and Mio was even higher at 1500. Tomo was upset that Mio was stronger, but nothing changed when they rechecked. Makoto was embarrassed when they checked his level, and it was still at level 1. They asked for a room for the night, but the innkeeper charged 6 gold coins, which they thought was too much. Tomo used a bit of intimidation, and the price was lowered to 2 gold coins. Later that night, Makoto and Mio took a walk through the village. They bumped into a girl who seemed upset. Makoto was suspicious, so he told Mio to deal with it. Mio scolded the girl harshly, which made Makoto step in and tell her to be nicer. Makoto asked the girl why she was out so late, and she burst into tears, hugging him and saying she needed help. Makoto decided to bring her back to the inn. The girl introduced herself as Ren and explained that her sister, Toa, had been missing for over a month. Meanwhile, Tomo came across some men trying to raid their carriage. She fought them, and even though she was holding back, she accidentally cut two of them in half. She brought one of the attackers back to the inn, but Makoto was mad that she hadn't checked if they were dead or alive first. He looked at the attacker and realized it was actually a woman, described with some massive plot. Ren walked in and heard Makoto speaking, but she didn't understand a word because of the language barrier. Makoto told her to get some food and go to bed, and Ren thanked him for his kindness. Ren showed Makoto a drawing of her missing sister, Toa. Makoto was shocked because Toa looked just like Nukumi, the girl he liked back in his world. Ren wished Makoto good night, but it was evident she felt conflicted about something. Makoto checked the memories of the woman Tomo caught and found out she was part of a group of thieves connected to the Adventurers Guild. He also learned that To was being held by the same thieves. Makoto immediately sent Tomo and Mio to rescue her. Mio thought they could take their time, but seeing how serious Makoto was, they left right away. Makoto was so determined because Toa looked just like his old crush. Tomo and Mio talked while on their way. Mio wondered if Makoto knew Toa before, but Tomo said that was impossible because he didn't know anyone in this world. Tomo mentioned that she had seen Makoto's memories, which made Mio jealous since she wanted to know more about him too. Meanwhile, Makoto and Ren headed to the trading exchange. Makoto reassured Ren that Mio and Tomo were already on their way to save her sister. In a flashback, they learned that Ren and To had gotten into debt trying to become adventurers. To had told Ren to run, but she had gotten caught too. In the present, they saw Toa feeling hopeless, thinking she wouldn't be saved. Suddenly, Tomo and Mio showed up and rescued her, healing her with magic. They tried to leave, but a man named Mills showed up, and Toa recognized him as the strongest adventurer in Zetsuya. Meanwhile, Makoto sold fruit from the demiplane for 500 gold, and Ren started to get suspicious about who he really was. At the end, Ren met with some adventurers and told them about Makoto's sale. They told her to steal the fruit, thinking it would pay off her debt. Ren didn't want to do it, but she was worried about her sister, so she agreed. Back with Tomo and Mio, Mills questioned how To was able to move after being captured. He was the leader of the group that took her. He tried to convince Tomo and Mio to join his team, saying they could get rich. Tomo and Mio refused, and Mills insulted them for following that ugly ass who was still only level 1. Angry, Tomo and Mio attacked, but Mills blocked them with a barrier called Clay Edge. To warned them that this barrier was really strong. Meanwhile, Ren was torn about stealing from Makoto, but then Makoto appeared and told the receptionist that Ren was his friend. Hearing this, Ren felt emotional because she didn't expect him to think of her as a friend. Back at the fight, Tomo broke Mills's barrier and Mio started beating up the men. Mills tried to take Toa hostage, but Tomo quickly stopped him. After the battle, Tomo and Mio started arguing about who did more to show off. Tomo started cutting through the town with her sword, and Mio joined in, wanting to prove she was just as strong. They ended up causing a lot of damage. Later, Toa and Ren were reunited, and To thanked Makoto for saving her. Makoto noticed that Toa looked just like Nukumi. Even her huge plot, except for her hair. The girls were exhausted and fell asleep. Tomo thought everything turned out okay, but Makoto suddenly asked Mio for some of her silk. He tied both Tomo and Mio up and thanked them for saving Toa, but also scolded them for causing so much destruction. He then threw them away to think about what they had done. After destroying the village, Makoto and the others left for the town of Sige. The other adventurers who were held by Mills came with them. On the way, they stopped at a guild and explained that Zetsuya was destroyed by monsters, but luckily everyone escaped. Tomo used her powers to erase most people's memories, except for Toa and Ren. The receptionist at the guild asked if the monsters were still there, but Tomo and Mio explained that they had taken care of them. Since they were over level 1000, the receptionist didn't believe them, thinking no one could have a level that high. Makoto realized that the rivalry between Tomo and Mio could cause problems in the future, so he told a story about a samurai who went on a journey to become stronger. This inspired Tomo to ask for permission to go train in the wilderness. Makoto agreed, and she left. Mio was happy to finally have Makoto's full attention, but felt irritated by Toa and her milk bags. As they continued traveling, Makoto sensed danger from killer bees nearby. Using his Kai ability, he asked Mio to take care of them. Mio sliced them up with her wind magic, impressing everyone. Toa insisted on harvesting materials from the bees, but Makoto only stared at her plot. When she started smashing the bugs, he felt disgusted. They kept encountering monsters along the way, and Makoto named their group the Kuzunoha Trading Company. Soon, they came across rare monsters called Ruby Eyes. The adventurers asked Mio to be careful when fighting them to avoid damaging the valuable parts. Frustrated, Mio told Makoto to handle it. He took out his bow and shot the Ruby Eyes, hitting all their weak spots and defeating them in one shot. The group was amazed by Makoto's skills, but they quickly focused on collecting the loot. They gathered 12 Ruby Eyes before arriving at Siga. At the Adventurers Guild in Siga, Toa thanked Makoto for helping her level up during their journey. Makoto felt down because even after killing so many monsters, he was still stuck at level 1. He spotted an S-rank quest that involved selling Ruby Eyes, and since they already had some, he accepted the quest, thinking it would be easy money. They divided up the loot, with Makoto keeping only the Ruby Eyes and a few valuable materials, while the rest went to the others. Before parting ways, they decided to have a celebration together. They exchanged contact info through their adventure, license cards, which also let them make calls and access information. During dinner, the group bonded and got to know each other better. Louisa, Hazel, and Renana introduced themselves. Renana challenged Makoto to an arm wrestling match but lost easily. Toa warned Makoto that the Rotsgard Trading Company, which posted the Ruby Eyes quest, had a bad reputation, so Makoto became cautious. He carefully checked the Ruby Eyes before bringing them to his room. That night, Mio shared a room with Makoto and hoped she could finally taste his cucumber. She even considered destroying one of the beds to increase her chances, but Makoto gave her about her ugly ass and went straight to sleep, leaving Mio disappointed. Makoto realized that the rivalry between Tomo and Mio could cause problems in the future, so he told a story about a samurai who went on a journey to become stronger. This inspired Tomo to ask for permission to go train in the wilderness. Makoto agreed, and she left. Mio was happy to finally have Makoto's full attention, but felt irritated by Toa and her milk bags. As they continued traveling, Makoto sensed danger from killer bees nearby. Using his Kai ability, he asked Mio to take care of them. Mio sliced them up with her wind magic, impressing everyone. Toa insisted on harvesting materials from the bees, but Makoto only stared at her plot when she started smashing the bugs. He felt disgusted. They kept encountering monsters along the way, and Makoto named their group the Kuzunoha Trading Company. Soon, they came across rare monsters called Ruby Eyes. The adventurers asked Mio to be careful when fighting them to avoid damaging the valuable parts. Frustrated, Mio told Makoto to handle it. He took out his bow and shot the Ruby Eyes, hitting all their weak spots and defeating them in one shot. The group was amazed by Makoto's skills, but they quickly focused on collecting the loot. They gathered 12 Ruby Eyes before arriving at Sige. At the Adventurers Guild in Sige, Toa thanked Makoto for helping her level up during their journey. Makoto felt down because even after killing so many monsters, he was still stuck at level 1. He spotted an S-rank quest that involved selling Ruby Eyes, and since they already had some, he accepted the quest, thinking it would be easy money. They divided up the loot, with Makoto keeping only the Ruby Eyes and a few valuable materials, while the rest went to the others. Before parting ways, they decided to have a celebration together. They exchanged contact info through their adventure, license cards, which also let them make calls and access information. During dinner, the group bonded and got to know each other better. Louisa, Hazel, and Renana introduced themselves. Renana challenged Makoto to an arm wrestling match, but lost easily. Toa warned Makoto that the Rotsguard trading company, which posted the Ruby Eyes quest, had a bad reputation, so Makoto became cautious. He carefully checked the Ruby Eyes before bringing them to his room. That night, Mio shared a room with Makoto and hoped she could finally taste his cucumber. She even considered destroying one of the beds to increase her chances, but Makoto gave all about her ugly ass and went straight to sleep, leaving Mio disappointed. The next day, Makoto learned how to create gates, which allowed him and everyone else to return to the demiplane. When they got back, he met with Emma, who now worked as his secretary. She told him that all the species in the demiplane were settling in well and doing their jobs. She also mentioned they were building a huge castle for him based on one from his memories. Makoto realized that Tomo hadn't been around since she left for training, and as he was thinking about how she was doing, the dwarf chief arrived. He took Makoto to their workshop, excited to show him the new armor they had made. The dwarves proudly displayed several sets of armor, but Makoto turned them down because he was an archer and didn't need armor like a knight would. The dwarves were really disappointed, but then Makoto noticed a coat that fit his style. Rugi, the magic expert, explained that the coat could absorb Makoto's mana, but she warned him that it might be too dangerous because he had so much mana. Makoto tried on the coat, and it worked at first. The coat could switch between defense mode and mobility mode, but soon it couldn't handle all of Makoto's mana and tore apart. Makoto asked Rugi if she could make it stronger, and she excitedly promised to create one that could handle all of his mana. Meanwhile, Mio's followers, the Arke, Ali, had changed into humans using magic. They focused on gathering ingredients, and were able to eat even poisonous items without getting hurt. The next day, Makoto took the Ruby Eyes to the Rotsguard Trading Company, where he was warmly greeted by Patrick, the president, and his butler, Morris. At the same time, an adventurer named Lime went to the guild to ask about who completed the Ruby Eyes quest, and the receptionist told him it was Makoto. Makoto pretended he couldn't speak because of a curse and used magic bubbles to communicate with Patrick. He introduced himself as a level 1 E-class adventurer, which made Patrick disappointed. He thought Makoto was just another beginner, but then Makoto showed him the Ruby Eyes, and Patrick was shocked. He quickly checked that they were real and apologized for doubting him. Makoto asked why Patrick needed the Ruby Eyes, and Patrick explained that his wife and daughters were cursed and needed a special medicine called ambrosia to cure them. Feeling sorry for him, Makoto said he knew an alchemy meister who could help make the medicine. Patrick explained that even with the Ruby Eyes, they still needed more of them. But before he could finish, Makoto gave him all the Ruby Eyes he had, making Patrick and his servants overjoyed. Patrick gave Makoto the job receipt and mentioned that he would need to take the merchant registration test. Makoto was surprised, as he didn't know about the tests. He headed to the merchant guild, where the receptionist explained that there was an exam and a practical material gathering test. If he failed, he would have to wait 6 months to try again. Makoto bought an expensive study book to prepare for the written test, but when he opened it, he realized it was just simple math. He finished the test in 5 minutes, and the examiner was shocked to see his nearly perfect score. Makoto wondered why the education in this world was so basic. For the next part of the test, Makoto was told to randomly choose a rare item to find within 3 days. The examiner thought it would be tough for him, but Makoto remembered that he already had plenty of rare items from his adventures. He pulled out one of the items, surprising the examiner again. Meanwhile, Tomo, who had been training, defeated a giant crab monster and celebrated with her companions. But then, a demi-human brought her a message from Emma saying that Mio had been accessing Makoto's memory vault. Feeling jealous, Tomo rushed back to the demiplane. When she returned, Tomo asked Emma if Mio had been going through Makoto's memories. Emma reassured her that Mio was only translating the memories. Tomo then asked if anything had happened between Mio and Makoto while she was away, but Mio quickly changed the subject. Later, Makoto went to a restaurant and tried to order food, but he struggled because he couldn't speak the local language very well. He ended up ordering something he didn't like and wished he could have a proper meal. Nearby, Lime was spying on him, and people around him were talking about the defeat of the killer bees and the giant crab. After his disappointing meal, Makoto returned to the demiplane to enjoy some fruit, but Tomo's clone told him that fruit production had dropped because of bad weather. Makoto shared his idea of creating an illusion city, a place that people could only find if they got lost in the mist. The city would offer rare foods and items, making it famous in the outside world. Suddenly, Makoto got a telepathic message saying that Mio was in trouble. He asked one of the human Arche what was going on, and they explained that while Mio was watching something from Makoto's memories, Tomo had tried to stop her. When Makoto checked in, he found out that Mio had become obsessed with anime from his memories and was now a huge fan. She and Tomo were arguing about whether anime or historical dramas were better. Makoto let them both keep watching, but told them to stop fighting over it. That night, Makoto returned to his room to rest, but there were only 2 beds for the 3 of them. When he asked for one of the beds, Tomo and Mio told him to pick one of them to share a bed with. Makoto refused and ended up sleeping in a chair. The next morning, Makoto talked with Hazel, the alchemy meister, about making the ambrosia. As they prepared to leave, Lime watched them from a distance and told his friends to get ready to attack. Makoto and Hazel visited the Rotsgard trading company, but Hazel felt nervous because the company was very powerful and he was worried about messing up. They went to the lab where Hazel read the ambrosia recipe and realized it was easy to make, except for extracting the fluid from the ruby eyes. While Hazel worked, Makoto got annoyed at how often Hazel mentioned the goddess in his spells. Finding Hazel's method efficient, Makoto secretly helped him out by using magic. Hazel asked if they were using a different method, and Morris explained that they were using ruby eyes instead of the rare ambrosia flower, because the bees that made ruby eyes fed on that flower. This gave Makoto the idea of making the flowers a special product for his company. Soon, Hazel successfully made a bottle of ambrosia, and Morris took it to Patrick. They made 2 more bottles, but when Morris came back, he accidentally slammed the door, causing Hazel to drop one. Makoto caught it before it hit the ground. Morris took them to Patrick, who explained that when he tried to give the medicine to his wife, she attacked him, and it took several guards to stop her. Hazel believed that someone had added to the curse to stop her from taking the medicine. Patrick told the sad story of how his wife's illness had started with a mild fever and slowly made her lose her mind. He started crying, thinking the curse would be broken today. Makoto asked to be taken to Patrick's wife and said he would hold her while Patrick gave her the medicine. Patrick doubted him because Makoto was a low level, but Hazel assured him that Makoto could handle it. Using the scent of the ambrosia to lure Patrick's wife out, Makoto used judo moves to hold her down while Patrick gave her the medicine. Patrick cried tears of joy when his wife was cured. They also gave the medicine to his daughters, and they were healed too. Patrick thanked Makoto and the goddess, but Makoto wasn't happy that the goddess was getting the credit. Makoto left Hazel to finish refining the potion and found Mio and Tomo waiting for him outside. Suddenly, a group of adventurers attacked them. Makoto dodged the attacks, but Mio and Tomo fought back to test the adventurers' strength. The attacks didn't affect Mio and Tomo. Lime offered Mio 10 gold to join his side, and Mio pretended to accept, making Tomo angry. But Mio was just pretending because Makoto had told her not to cause too much damage, like what had happened in Zetsuya. Makoto asked Tomo to handle the fight, and she easily defeated their attackers. Lime begged for mercy, and Tomo spared him after seeing something in his memories. Lime admitted that he was the one who put the sleeping curse on Patrick's family. He explained that he was tricked by a man who told him the curse wouldn't hurt anyone and would help adventurers get treated better by the Rotsgard company. Tomo read his mind and confirmed he was telling the truth, so they let him go. but Mio took all of his gold as payment. A few days later, Lime apologized to Patrick, who forgave him but limited his ability to work as an adventurer. Lime decided he didn't want to be an adventurer anymore. They saw him watching the orphanage where he grew up, and then Tomo showed up. She gave him a new sword, a gift from Makoto, since Lime had broken his old one. Lime explained that he had fallen for the man's lies because someone from the orphanage had died because of the Rotsguard company. Tomo offered Lime a deal: become her spy, and she would protect him and the orphanage. Lime agreed. Later, Tomo spied on Patrick and Morris, overhearing them talk about how it would be bad if Makoto started his own company. This made Tomo suspicious of them. Back in the demiplane, Emma told Makoto that the warriors were losing confidence because they kept getting beaten by Makoto, Tomo, and Mio. Mio suggested they stop fighting the warriors for a while, but Tomo disagreed, saying it would make the warriors feel abandoned. Makoto decided to check on everyone. He asked Tomo to meet with the lizardman and took Mio to check on the Arche, Ali. They overheard the orcs talking about how it was impossible to even get close to Makoto during training, while Tomo and Mio let themselves get hit. Later, they met with Tomo, who explained that the lizardmen had the same issues. Makoto realized that the races were sharing information with each other. Emma mentioned that each race liked to keep their fighting techniques secret. Makoto suggested having the races try each other's fighting styles, so they gathered the orcs and lizardmen for a special training session. Both sides sent their strongest warriors, and during the match, the fighters destroyed the ring, which impressed Makoto. The orcs won, but Tomo wasn't impressed, calling them weak. One of the orcs tried to defend the fight, saying it was tough for them, but Tomo said they needed to be much stronger. Makoto asked her to go easy on them, but Tomo explained that they needed to be reliable in battle. Tomo announced that from now on, they would have weekly fights to rank the warriors from each race, including the dwarves and the Arche, Ali. Everyone worried that their techniques would be exposed, but Tomo told them not to worry because they weren't strong enough for it to matter. She said the top fighters would be known as great warriors, and those who didn't improve would need to find other jobs. Tomo asked Makoto to say a few words, but he was too nervous, so he just agreed with Tomo and added that he believed they could all get stronger together. As he thought of a name for the ranking system, Tomo suggested calling it the Dimension Ranking, though Makoto wasn't sure about the name. Later, they checked their levels. Mio was still at level 1500, and Tomo had increased to level 1340. Makoto was impressed by Tomo's improvement, but Tomo wasn't satisfied with her progress. Meanwhile, the guild receptionist said they were short on adventurers because many were injured or had left. Makoto offered to help by recommending some adventurers. As he did so, Makoto asked Tomo to train Toa and her group so they could get stronger. Tomo thought about finding a good place near the guild where they could practice. But then she remembered how Makoto had reacted when he saw Toa. She realized that Toa probably reminded him of someone from his past life, not wanting anything. To mess with her time with Makoto, Tomo decided she needed to train them quickly and make them strong enough. Omo's group went to fight some Shadowtail monkeys, but the battle went poorly, forcing Tomo to intervene and save them. Afterward, she expressed her frustration, telling them they needed to work on their strategy. To help them, she taught them some basic battle tactics. She instructed Hazel to create a trap using earth and water magic, then told Louisa to find a good spot with a clear view. Hazel added poison to the mud trap, immobilizing the monkeys and giving Louisa a perfect shot. The monkeys that survived were taken down by Nina, who charged at them, and Toe-Up, who sneaked up and attacked from behind. Tomo explained to Hazel that this new approach would allow him to focus on attacking instead of worrying about healing people, except for Nina. Following her plan, they managed to defeat all their enemies. After the fight, Tomo told them they would take on another monkey nest on their own, emphasizing that even with low levels, they needed to challenge themselves and prove they were the best. Later, Tomo went to the guild and informed the receptionist that Toe's team was now handling the Shadowtail nests. The receptionist was shocked. doubting their strength for such a big task. However, Toe's group soon arrived with proof that they had defeated 2 monkey lords, showing they had successfully cleared 2 nests. Meanwhile, Makoto asked Mio to go to Tenak Forest to find the ambrosia flower, which he wanted as the main product for their new store. Makoto then visited Patrick and asked if he could rent one of Patrick's shops. Patrick wondered why Makoto didn't want to buy his own store. Makoto explained that in the Ion Kingdom, the government would expect him to spy for them if he bought a store. Patrick then told him about a neutral city not controlled by any country, suggesting it would be perfect for Makoto's business. He offered to contact someone in that city for him. At the same time, Mio reached Tenak Forest, but disliked it because there was nothing good to eat. Meanwhile, a group of human adventurers entered the forest, unaware that 2 elves, Aqua and Aris, were watching them. The elves were unhappy about the humans trespassing in their forest. The adventurers were quickly defeated, and Aqua told Aris that she would have killed them if they had touched the crimson lotus flower. Back at the celebration for his new company, Makoto thanked everyone who had helped him, but being shy, he asked Tomo to speak for him. However, Tomo insisted that everyone wanted to hear from him directly. During the party, Tomo's clone brought Makoto a drink, and when he patted her on the head, Tomo was pleased, as she was connected to her clone. Seeing this, Mio became jealous and presented a dish she had discovered. She wanted to feed it to Makoto, but he ate it on his own, which saddened her. Tomo pulled Mio away to give others a chance to talk with Makoto. After that, Aina, one of the Ali, approached Makoto and told him that she could now stay in her human form longer. She also gave him a report on their trip to Tenak Forest and shared the location of the ambrosia flower. She mentioned wanting to bring a sample back, but explained that the forest was controlled by another race. Makoto asked how the Ali were doing in the demiplane, and she replied that they had adjusted well thanks to him. Next, Lidi, a lizardman, thanked Makoto for helping him in training. He told Makoto that he was learning unarmed combat from Tomo, which worried Makoto, as he didn't want everyone becoming like her. Baron, the dwarf, asked if Makoto enjoyed living inside the demiplane. Makoto said it was nice, but admitted that Mio and Tomo sometimes caused trouble. He wondered if Baron and the others ever got bored since they didn't leave the demiplane often. Baron assured him that the demiplane felt like paradise and that he was happy crafting weapons. However, Baron was interested in seeing weapons from the outside world, so Makoto allowed him to work in their new shop. Later, an orc told Makoto that he had been made the guide for adventurers in Mirage City, a fake town where they traded goods from the demiplane. Makoto thanked the orc for his hard work, and the orc felt proud to be helpful. During the party, Mio complained to Tomo that she had wanted to tell Makoto about the ambrosia flowers and the elves guarding them. Tomo advised they should wait until they knew more. Suddenly, they lost track of Makoto's presence and became worried. They rushed to find him and discovered him practicing archery. Mio ran up to him, crying and hugging him. Tomo asked him how he practiced, and Makoto explained that he cleared his mind when he focused on his target. In a world where Makoto's consciousness flickers like a dying flame, Tomo observes his alarming ability to vanish and reappear, a feat typically reserved for the deceased. Mio corroborates this, likening his temporary disappearances to moments of death. Makoto reassures them of his well-being, but Tomo notes his abnormally surging mana, now almost on par with the goddesses, a direct result of his relentless training. She warns him that the goddess's wrath would be severe if she discovered the expanded demiplane, and urges him to find a way to control his burgeoning power. The next day, Makoto, burdened by fatigue from his inability to practice archery and Mio's persistent attempts to get closer, heads out to shop for his store. Lost in thought, he inadvertently wanders into the red light district. A demi-human's bag suddenly flies toward him. Upon returning it, he notices the demi-human's striking resemblance to himself. A girl then begins to flirt with him, but before things escalate, Tomo and Mio intervene, pulling him away from the district. Once they reach a secluded area, Tomo and Mio angrily confront Makoto, questioning if they were not enough for him. Makoto, though considering them family, was too embarrassed to voice his true feelings. Instead, he tells them that what transpired was not their fault, which only infuriates them further. They tear off his clothes, but Makoto narrowly escapes. Their advances by creating a mist gate. Emma later finds Makoto caught in a tree and quickly deduces the situation. She informs him that his new protective gear is ready, prompting Makoto to head to Rui to try it on. He's pleased with the new gear, but his moment of satisfaction is interrupted by Mio, who appears and apologizes for the previous night's events. Makoto forgives her, but cautions her against repeating such actions. He then inquires about the race guarding the ambrosia flowers. Mio offers to handle it, but Makoto, concerned about her potential methods, decides to accompany her. Upon reaching the Tinak forest, they realize they are being followed. They manage to lose their pursuers and locate the ambrosia flowers. Makoto observes the meticulous care given to the flowers and deduces that someone must be watching over them. Suddenly, Aqua and Eris appear, angering Mio. Simultaneously, the human adventurers from earlier arrive, and the forest guardians mistake everyone for thieves. Eris launches an ice magic attack, but Makoto effortlessly blocks it. He recognizes one of the adventurers as the same girl who flirted with him earlier. Eris attempts another assault with fire arrows, but Makoto's defensive Kai stops them. Makoto tries to de-escalate the situation, but Mio grows increasingly enraged, ready to attack everyone. Tomoe contacts Makoto telepathically, asking about the commotion. He explains the situation and requests her assistance. Initially, Tomoe refuses, citing his presence with Mio and even having held her hand. However, Makoto entices her with an offer to let her make a katana and grow rice, securing her agreement. She instructs him to distract the adventurers while she opens a mist gate to transport them to Mirage City. To pacify Mio, Makoto gives her some of his blood. Mio then uses her dark magic to absorb the elves' mana and halt their attacks. Makoto explains to the elves that he isn't there to steal the flowers, but simply wishes to talk. The elves agree and lead Makoto and Mio to their village. Once there, Makoto observes a magic barrier surrounding and concealing the village. They meet the elders and their leader, Neil Gore, who identifies himself as a forest ogre. Mio is confused, as she believed them to be elves. Neil Gore's son, Adona, arrives and clarifies that they are essentially elves, despite now calling themselves forest ogres. The elders explain that while elves need the forest to survive, forest ogres protect it. Adona warns that their hidden existence cannot last forever, as the dragon's barrier is weakening. Makoto states he's merely a merchant seeking medicinal ingredients, but Adona remains suspicious of Makoto's immense strength. The elders continue to question him. Later, Aqua and Eris apologize for their attack and invite Makoto to meet their master, Mundo, who dramatically enters by smashing through a wall. Mundo shakes Makoto's hand for an extended period, provoking Mio's jealousy, causing her to send him flying with her magic. Afterward, Makoto asks Mio to spy on Adona and Mundo, a task she eagerly accepts, recalling similar spies from his memories. Nijo later informs Makoto that Mundo is possessed by something and that Adona is connected to demons. Nijo sends Mio back to the demiplane and asks Tomoe to return, stating there's something he wants to discuss. During a feast the elves hold for Makoto, he notices Mundo and Adona arguing. Suddenly, a skeleton monster emerges from Mundo's body and kills Adona. Makoto realizes the creature drained Mundo's life force but spared him, killing Adona due to his connection to a specific woman. From his knowledge of games, Makoto identifies the creature as a lich. The lich attempts to attack, but Makoto is immune to its effects. He uses Mio's dark magic to absorb the lich's mana and overpower it. Tomoe arrives and moves the lich through a gate so Makoto can interrogate it later. The villagers are astonished by Makoto's strength, and it is revealed that they had planned to kill him after the feast, which shocks him. Tomoe speaks to Neil Gore, who initially doesn't recognize her. She reminds him that she was the one who established the village's mist barrier. Upon realizing her identity, Neil Gore informs everyone about her, but Tomo demands that they bow to Makoto, as he is her master. They proceed to interrogate the Lich, and Makoto asks why it was in the village. The Lich explains it was studying the forest ogre's abilities. Tomoe asks why the Lich became undead, and it clarifies that it wishes to evolve into a grunt, a being superior to humans. The Lich inquires how Makoto defeated it, and Makoto explains that he used dark magic to drain its mana. The Lich expresses disbelief, thinking it would require an insane amount of mana, which angers Mio and Tomoe, prompting them to threaten the Lich. Makoto calms them down. Makoto asks if the Lich has any spellbooks for sale, but the Lich thinks he's joking. Makoto clarifies that he only learned magic from a single page written by a man. Tomoe suggests keeping the Lich around to assist Makoto with magic. She believes the Lich must know about other worlds beyond the goddess's control, and theorizes that grants can travel between them. Makoto wonders if returning to his original world is possible, but Tomo states it's almost impossible. She explains that many have attempted to travel between worlds, but few have succeeded. Tomo reveals that it is not grants who can move between worlds, but people who have already done so once before. Makoto asks if it's possible to do it again, but Tomo tells him that even if the goddess opened a path, the survival rate would be less than 10%. Tomo suggests that Makoto form a contract with the Lich, given his desire to learn magic from him. They agree, but Makoto lowers his mana to facilitate the contract. The contract is completed, and the Lich reverts to a human form. He thanks Makoto for allowing him to serve and is given the name Shiki. Tomoe tells Makoto he still has much to learn, but suddenly, a huge explosion occurs. Tomoe collapses and apologizes for her mistake. Makoto quickly instructs Mio to stop Tomoe's bleeding and then heads toward the explosion with Shiki. Shiki tries to follow but falls, still adjusting to his new body. He decides to conserve his energy and instead helps heal. Makoto was surprised when he saw Shiki heal the injured nearby, as he had not known Shiki possessed such an ability. Makoto then ran towards the explosion and found several hurt individuals, including an ally named Hoko. He found it strange that an ally, who normally healed quickly, was in such a critical state. It reminded him of his cat's death in his past life. Shiki attempted to heal them with magic, but some injuries were too severe. He asked Makoto for help, but since Makoto lacked healing magic, he initially tried using his Kai ability, which was insufficient. He then combined 2 Kai spells and successfully healed the injured. Makoto felt confused as he sensed his mana spreading around the area. The girl then gave him a necklace that he recognized as belonging to an orc from the party. The explosion and its aftermath. When Makoto reached the explosion site, he discovered signs of a mist gate, M-gate, and wondered if it had caused the blast. He noticed more gates and sensed Tomo's clone, the orc, and some adventurers on the other side. As the gates began to close, Makoto recalled what Mio had told him about people's consciousness disappearing when they died. With only one gate remaining, he tried to save an adventurer trapped on the other side. As he reached out, he began seeing the adventurer's memories. It turned out that the girl from the red light district had been after Makoto as part of her plan. She and her group of adventurers had stolen items from Mirage City, and a young orc had witnessed their escape. The adventurers tried to stop the orc and others, and the girl threw a bag containing a ring. This ring, which had absorbed Makoto's mana, caused the explosion. Tomo's clone had attempted to protect everyone with a water wall, but the explosion was too powerful, breaking through the barrier and killing everyone. The explosion also created a mist gate, which was how the girl ended up teleporting to Sai. Still worried about the stolen weapons, the girl suddenly found herself surrounded by mist, and Makoto appeared, looking furious. He was not wearing his mask, and the girl began insulting his appearance, but he ignored her. She bragged about being a level 96 hunter, but Makoto remained unfazed. He pulled out an orc weapon, and the girl attacked him. Makoto cut off her hands and knocked her down, telling her she deserved it. She begged him to stay away, but he found her annoying and finished her off. Afterward, tears streamed down his face. He wondered if it was because it was his first intentional kill or due to the explosion's victims. He then realized it was because, in his old world, death was always something sad. Funerals and future plans. The next day, Makoto held a traditional orc funeral for those who had died and pretended to be all right. He told Tomo about seeing the girl's memories, and she expressed pride, saying he had acted like the true king of the demi-plane. Makoto, however, wondered if his contracts with his servants were changing him. Tomo laughed, stating that the servants' powers could not enter their master's body. Shiki explained that Makoto was probably able to use Tomo's power because of their deep connection, not due to any physical change. Mio became angry, thinking Tomo had a special bond with Makoto, and the girls argued over who was closer to him. Later, Makoto spoke to a man about building a wall around Mirage City to protect the weak and children. He also wanted the lizard men to patrol the area and for the Alice to pretend to be adventurers in Mirage City to gather information. The dwarves briefed him on warehouse management, explaining that they would dispose of waste immediately and implement safety measures. After meeting the parents of the deceased orc, Makoto felt guilty and promised to make things right. However, the orc's friend reminded him that he had saved their village and they would gladly give their lives for him. Makoto then met with Patrick, who told him about Rotsgard Academy, located in a neutral town. Patrick showed him a map that closely resembled Japan, which surprised Makoto. He decided to head to the town immediately, but revealed to Patrick that he had been hiding something. He took off his mask, showing his real face. Patrick was shocked, but reassured Makoto of his continued trust, mentioning how he had never stopped loving his family, even after they were cursed. Makoto felt a little offended by the comparison. Mio and Tomo wondered why Makoto was only taking Shiki with him on this trip. Makoto explained that Shiki, being a former human researcher, would be more useful as he would not destroy any promising talents. Makoto admitted that after the recent events, he wanted to understand this world better and learn more about his parents. He gifted Tomo his memories of swordsmanship and Mio his memories of firearms, telling them he would be back soon. Tomoe planned to move the forest ogres to the demi-plane, while Mio managed Mirage City and their shop in Sai. Unexpected battle and its aftermath. However, before Makoto and Shiki could leave, Makoto was suddenly teleported somewhere else and attacked by two adventurers, Sophia and Lancer. He dodged, but his fingers were cut off. Meanwhile, Morris told Patrick that the main forces from Limia and Gritonia would soon face the demons. Makoto was confused by the sudden attack and remembered hearing the goddess's voice just before he was teleported. Sophia and Lancer believed he was a demi-human and wondered if he was a hero sent by the goddess. Sophia continued attacking, and Makoto used barriers and his strengthening Kai to defend himself, but it was not enough to stop all the hits. His injury was more serious than he had thought, so he used a bowstring to stop the bleeding. Makoto learned that a war had broken out between humans and demons, and his attackers were siding with the demons. Lancer told Sophia to finish off Makoto, saying he was in the way of their advance. Makoto considered escaping to the demi-plane, but realized they would follow him, so he prepared to fight. He fired multiple arrows at them, using his concealing Kai to try and escape, but suddenly crystal walls trapped him. Makoto used barriers on his feet to break the walls, but Sophia and Lancer caught up. They believed he had strange abilities and suspected he was under the goddess's protection. Sophia put on a ring that removed divine protection, but Makoto told them he received nothing from the goddess. Sophia was revealed to be the famous dragon hunter, and Lancer was actually a dragon. Makoto tried to convince them he was just a merchant and did not want to fight, but they did not believe him. Out of options, Makoto removed his mana-absorbing ring and used strengthening Kai, blowing them back. He switched to investigative Kai to track them through the dust, and fired a special arrow made by the dwarves. Sophia and Lancer tried to block the attack, but the arrows split into multiple smaller arrows, breaking through their defenses. Makoto followed up with a powerful water arrow. Lancer, who also used water magic, was surprised that Makoto's water abilities were much stronger and was frozen. Sophia tried to finish Makoto by cutting off his head, but he barely dodged. She attacked, again with all her might, but Makoto blocked it with his arrow, breaking her sword in the process. Amazed by the quality of the dwarf's work, he was caught off guard when Sophia grabbed him. Lancer created crystals in the sky and used them to teleport Sophia and Makoto high into the air. She then returned to the ground, thinking Makoto was done for. However, Makoto shot fireballs, destroying the crystals, and fire rained down on both the human and demon armies below. Makoto drew on the power of his mana rings and fired a massive water arrow. The impact created a huge pillar of water that froze everything in its path. Makoto disappeared as the rings shattered, causing a massive explosion that created a new lake. Sophia and Lancer barely survived and assumed Makoto must have died in the blast. Sophia vowed to kill him if he was still alive. Recovery and new discoveries. Makoto woke up to find Tomoe and Mio asleep next to him, all his injuries healed. He told them about his battle with Sophia and Lancer. Shiki explained that the goddess had manipulated the situation to force Makoto into fighting the demon army. Mio became angry, but Makoto believed it was his fault for being careless. He realized he needed to increase how much mana he could use at once and decided to study at the academy with Shiki. Tomoe thought Tomoki had launched an attack using his divine spear, aided by Yukin and Natsu's replica shoes. During the chaos, Oki's party managed to escape. However, their retreat was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a powerful demon commander named Io, who stood ready to fight. Without warning, Oki struck first and succeeded in blowing off Io's arm. But instead of being phased, Io expressed irritation, not at the injury, but at the fact that Tomoki had failed to introduce himself before initiating combat. Oki quickly realized that defeating Io wouldn't be easy. At that moment, Hibiki arrived to support them. She apologized for Tomoki's behavior and properly introduced herself, trying to bring some diplomacy to the situation. To their collective shock, Io regenerated his severed arm with ease. Hibiki was alarmed. His healing ability was on par with that of the Black Spider, something few enemies could claim. Taking the upper hand, Io removed the goddess's blessing from both Oki and Hibiki, causing them to collapse to their knees. Kimi, realizing the gravity of the situation and that they were no longer immortal during the night, ordered a full retreat. However, Hibiki refused to flee. She declared that someone who only looked out for their own safety couldn't be called a hero. Io seemed disappointed that only Hibiki had chosen to stay and fight, but Hibiki reminded him that she wasn't alone. Her party had returned to stand beside her. Together, the humans engaged Io in battle throughout the night. Despite their determination, Hibiki soon realized she was no match for him. Elsewhere, Rona spoke with Sophia, another demon commander,